front of the school. All the upper grades were on the left. All the lower grades were on the right. There were a hall.
So if you were looking at the school, upper grades were on the east side of the building, lower grades were on the west side of the building.
That's correct. And there was a hall all the way from the back of that school to the front, clear across the front, and went clear to the back. And there was classrooms on the outer side of that hall. And through the 6th grade on the west side, and then the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th were on the west side. Auditorium was in the middle.
How did you get to school each day?
Walked through the woods,
Well, how far was it?
probably about a mile and a half or 2 miles, probably about 2 miles.
Mostly the first year, we walked 2 miles. After that, we had a bus route. The district bought a bus, one of those short buses, had 6 seats on the side. So from then, they picked us up.
How did you get to school each day?
Sometimes we rode a bus.
Not in the mornings, Dad and Mom.
Well, usually they took us, but
Yeah, I didn't ride the bus, but once
Yeah.
in a while.
right.
Well, the road in front of the school was US Highway 80. It was paved. Now, the country roads were not paved. They were gravel roads. And some of them, when it rained, you better not go that way. You're never going to get up the hill. That's where that's where your vehicle's going to be, stuck in the mud.
And where were you living at the time that the bus picked you up?
Forward.
Okay.
Farmer.
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 He was a cattle rancher.
Yeah, they missed school to pick cotton.
Okay.
Picking cotton. I will never forget it.
And I well remember in October, we had to pull out of school and pick cotton because it was ready and you didn't have farm hands except your own. And that also meant new shoes and some warmer clothes for winter.
Mr. McWhorter, 7th and 8th grade.
I will say with Mrs. White, we had prayer before we started school. We had the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. We sang Texas, Our Texas, and Holy, 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 the religious song. And we many times had America the Beautiful. And she would have different students come and stand by her as we sang. And very, very good lady.
In the first, second, third, fourth, we was taught by Miss Ruth Knowles at the time, and then she married a Sutton, and her name was Miss Ruth Sutton. Then we had Miss White. I don't know what her given name was. Mildred, that's what I was thinking, Mildred White. She taught the other grades. Then at one time we had a principal named Mr. Clark, I don't know what his given name was. And then at the last 3 years of school I was up here, it was Mr. A.Dale Browning.
And he was the
principal and the teacher.
Corrine and Bill Pittman were my teachers here at Coke.
Do you remember if there were any special programs or parties at Christmas?
We always had a play. Plays were very important. We'd have sometime a play in November around Thanksgiving and a Christmas play, and then an end of school play. And all the kids were in it, and we all had long parts to remember, but that was something that they did every year.
Was there a graduation program?
Yes, but it alternated between this school and Coke and Lone Grove. They all graduated together.
Well, every Friday during the ball season, we'd go to either to Lone Grove School, Pleasant Grove, or Coke and play ball. And he'd load us up in his camper and carry us the whole room that he taught with him.
And that was your school day?
Yeah, that was our school day.
Okay, that's great learning right there.
The parents would have their pots, you know, a couple of pots, and make big stew in them pots.
They'd bring their wash pots?
Yeah.
It was a program, and it was about nursery rhymes. And my brother was old King Cole. And all he did was sit and count his money. And the part I got, I didn't like, because I got the part as the maid. And there was a part that said, King was in his counting house, counting all his money.
Counting out his money.
The queen was in the garden. The queen was the girl that he got off the bus with. And the maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes. Along came a blackbird and nipped off her nose. And I had to have red lipstick all over my nose and playing. I didn't like that. But that was one I remember. But we did have Christmas plays, and they would show a film sometime.
Yeah,
At night.
every week.
Yeah, at night sometimes they would show film.
And I see this must be the auditorium.
This is the auditorium.
Do you have memories from the auditorium?
Well, absolutely. First time on the stage entertaining the crowd when I was 6 years old and enjoying every second of it. Except when they tried to get me to sing by myself. Didn't mind singing with a group. Don't like to be the only one singing. And then that end of the year stew we talked about, it'd be 200 or 300 people here. Cook all day, congressman came. It was quite an event. I remember one time in particular, we had a box supper, pie supper technically. I'm not sure it was raising money for something. I don't remember where the money was going, but Johnny Mackier, one of my friends, and I decided that we would buy Miss Jocelyn Taylor's pecan pie because it had a really good reputation. We had maybe $1 between us, and lots of pies were only selling for 50 cents. Prize boxes wrapped, and they were selling for 50 cents. We started bidding on the pie, and we realized there was a group of girls bidding against us, and people began to bring us money, and the price went up. For whatever reason, we bought the pie that day for $5.28. And then somebody told us that we were supposed to offer her the first serving, and that crushed us. We wanted the entire thing for ourselves. We did get cleaned out a guy's watermelon patch one time. We all had a big black diamond melon apiece, and came up here and put them on the porch and ate the heart out of them. And the big cemetery meeting was the next morning, and all those watermelon rinds were sitting out there. And my dad said, "You boys do that?"
I think that sometimes there would be a county graduation where all the schools would go together and have their graduation, because there wouldn't be enough for one small school. They might have 6 children in the 8th grade, and so the schools would combine for this graduation and maybe rotate having it at the different school buildings. And all schools at that time had auditoriums. It was a very important part of their building. The Lone Grove had an auditorium, and Cartwright had an auditorium, and I know Pleasant Grove that had consolidated before I started teaching out at Coke, but most of them had auditoriums.
Probably. This side of the school was kind of slanting down, and when it iced up, the kids that had them scooting down there, sliding down with the ice.
Well, did you slide down?
I scooted down.
Oh, you scooted down, okay.
Had all three, a swing set, seesaw, and a merry-go-round.
What did you do at recess?
Just go out there and play on the swings and recess. Or seesaw.
Baseball, football, but the football wasn't no good.
Well, we used to have a basketball court up here just this side of the church on the inside of the fence. And we had a merry-go-round out here, right outside this window. And we had some kind of swings that they were dangerous. Made out of steel, you put your arm in them, and you run and jump, and you swung in the air. And lots of times kids would let them go, and it was dangerous.
What were y'all doing that day?
Probably playing ball somewhere.
Well, what kind of ball was it?
Volleyball.
Volleyball.
We had what you called a county meet at the end in late summer. We'd have softball games. And our equipment was 1 true ball and a bat, no gloves.
Outhouse, about 150 yards away. They needed moving. They needed blowing up.
And when we first started school over here, we had outbuildings, outside restrooms.
Okay.
We didn't have indoor. No.
Okay.
It was heated, but we didn't have no cooling.
Okay.
I didn't think we had the fans other than do it with our own hands.
Seemed like it was wood.
So you had a wood stove?
And the boys cut the wood and seemed like, I believe we had a heater.
Eventually, the well was on the other side of the cemetery, and I remember when they brought the water fountain in, it set out here and had 4 spigots on it with handles. And we drank it, it came directly out of the well. And every once in a while, the big boys would get permission to actually go out to the well and drink out of the water hose out there.
Did you bring a lunch?
Sometimes I did.
What would you bring?
Might be a biscuit with some bacon or something like that.
Something left over from breakfast?
Yeah. And sometimes I had light bread and sometimes I didn't.
You ever eat in the cafeteria?
Yes. It was good food too. Had some of the best cookies you ever ate.
Did you have a cafeteria?
Well, I don't know what you'd call it. You go get a lunch tray and you get your lunch and you go back to your room and eat. You didn't have a cafeteria, you had a kitchen that you went in and got your food.
Did you take your tray back to the kitchen?
Yes, when you got through.
So, was it an organized type deal, or did the teacher just let you come and go as you finished?
Yeah.
No, we had government surplus. I don't know. A truck would pull up at the back of the building there, and they would unload cases of stuff, canned stuff, fruit. We had a piece of fruit just about every day at recess, twice a day. Apples, bananas, oranges, It was really good.
I guess a sandwich, biscuit and sausage, a lot of times. Not a sandwich. Biscuits and...
What did you bring it in? What?
Had a little bucket.
Was it a syrup bucket?
Yeah, we had little special buckets.
Oh, okay.
What did you do?
Well, you eat at your desk or you carry it outside. And they,
Oh, yeah.
Whatever mother fixed.
Whatever she fixed. We always had good sandwiches. I would have a tea cake in there.
Yeah. Cookies.
Being kind to everyone and you respected your teacher.
Respected the building, you didn't mess it up.
And all the class, for my part, and I think Kathy would say the same, all the classmates were extremely bonded because we had some difficult times. We all had to either work in the fields or we had things that were hard on us, so we all understood and shared a common bond.
I think the work ethics that I got out of it, I tell you, it's a lot of young people nowadays just don't seem like they have a good work ethic. They don't, I don't know, honest, I don't know.
I think that was a good foundation. That's where we got our start. And I can still remember the times of what I learned here.
I think it was just a loving family atmosphere.
Right.
Because when we were going to school here, most of the people we had known all the people all our lives.
I like for them to remember that in the day that there was a school, that activities revolved around the school and the church in that community, and the people of the community did come together when there was a need and band together, and I wished it was still that way today, that people could see the importance of an education, that teachers could be the role models that they were back then, and invest in the students forever, and that parents would back the teachers in their effort to educate those children.
I remember people that I know, I get tired of hearing me say that I can remember going to church in a horse and buggy and wagon and team, you know. It was Gilbreth, First Baptist.
That it was a community school, that it was the center of the community. And I believe it was pretty good educationally. As I said, we all graduated from high school. 2 of us were honor students up there.
This chalkboard that was very important too with a teacher in a common school. These students would go to the board and they would do math. They would perform math problems, and a teacher could check, could just look and see if they knew what they were doing. You could diagram sentences. You could call it. I guess you could have spelling lessons with them. So it was important. We didn't have copy machines that you were always running off papers. So that's why it was an important thing to have.
Well, I think the main thing, I'll always remember the teachers that I had, and they had a great deal of influence on my life. Mr. Pittman was not only my 4th through the 8th grade teacher, but he was also my Sunday school teacher on Sunday. So I had a great deal of respect for he and Miss Pittman and for what they taught us. This school kids were a very close-knit group. and they kept it that way.
Okay.
It would be great to put the, I'll tell you what we did.